Welcome everyone to our webinar on how to thrive in retirement. My name is April and I'm joined by my colleague Kane. Hi Kane.
Hello April, how are you?
Okay. So we're going to take you through today one of our we've got four-part seminar sessions, and this one is our final session, number 4, which is thriving in retirement, because ultimately that's what we want you to do. We want you to thrive in retirement. Now, before I do get stuck into the details, though, I'd like to make a couple of acknowledgements. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge our traditional custodians of our country throughout Australia and also pay my respects to both elders past and present. I also want to make mention that Kane and I are just going to be providing you with general advice or factual information today. So basically, we can tell you what you could do, but we can't tell you what you should do. Now, as I mentioned before, we are a 4-part series. So just to let you know, behind the scenes today, we do have our friendly education staff helping us with questions that do come through. So if you've got any questions throughout this webinar, please click on the Ask a Question, and then Kane and I will try and get to those commonly asked questions. However, our education team are on standby to also answer those questions live. So as I mentioned, 4-part series. First one, we talk about planning for your retirement. So the basics of what you really need to learn about how much you need in retirement, basically Super 101. Then we talk about growing your superannuation, so contributions, investing, things like that. Then there's also a pay yourself in retirement, where we dive deeper into the types of accounts that you can have in retirement that do pay yourself. But we're going to go through Thrive. And what does Thrive cover? Well, I will get Kane to run through a summary of the previous seminar, just in case you might want to attend that one. But we're going to go through investing in retirement, looking after your super. So we're talking about scams and protecting yourself. We'll then also talk about the age pension, which I know is quite a popular topic. Then we'll talk about the types of accounts that you can have as an Australian Retirement Trust member. But what I'll do is I'll hand over to Kane now, and he's going to take you through what we covered off in the previous seminar and also the investment options.
Thank you, April.
Thanks, Kane.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. And look, I just want to give a bit of a recap. So for those of you who may have been in the previous session, please bear with me while I just give a bit of a recap. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time, just so this one makes a bit of sense and you can see where it flows, and it may encourage you to, you know what, I might want to go back and actually attend the third session if that's what is of interest to you. All righty, so what we talked about in the third topic, which was titled How to Pay Yourself in Retirement, we looked at transition to retirement. It's a product. How does that work? Different strategies I can use. So I haven't retired, but how can I use this product? Then we looked at the different ways you can fund your retirement and how you can use superannuation and the different retirement products there. And we spent a bit of time also looking at the tax implications and what happens to super with beneficiaries there. So and lucky last, we just looked at how to manage your super when it comes to retirement. So one of the key things we covered off was the different sources that are available to you in retirement. Now, I appreciate a lot of our viewers, you might already be in retirement and you might be more experienced at this than I, but looking at the sources of income you've got available to you, you might have your own savings, your own assets, so bank accounts, shares outside of super. Certainly, hopefully you've got some superannuation, although we do know that a lot of retired Australians don't have as much super as a lot of the younger counterparts, because you didn't have super your whole working life. So it's certainly may not be as big an income factor as it will be going forward, but hopefully a lot of our viewers have done well there. And then there can also be the third pillar that we talk about when it comes to retirement income is the age pension that could apply to some of our viewers. All right, so when we're looking to how do we kind of link those two, it's like, well, how long do I need this money to last in retirement? So we've got everyone's favourite topic, a bit morbid, but life expectancy. How long do I need my retirement funds to last? How long am I going to be retired? And often it can be as long as we worked for. So I might have had a 30-year working career. I might be retired for 30 years. I've got to fund that. Or I might have longevity in my family. So that might mean that I'm actually probably going to outlive my life expectancy. So you need your income to last you for quite a bit. And that can and does often adjust over time. So often in the earlier years of retirement, a lot of people spend more of their money because they're healthier. They're so keen to get out there and experience life and travel. So they often spend a lot more than they do in the later years of retirement, where they might be less mobile, or they've done everything, all the big ticket items they wanted to do. They're more concerned just about seeing family and just in a routine. That can go the other way though if we have health issues. So sometimes spending goes up because there might be some expensive health issues that come across. So certainly things to keep in mind in retirement. So I've touched on some of these, some challenges that retirees face. So you've got those one-off expenses that, hey, I didn't budget for the car, blowing up. I didn't budget for one of my adult children getting in trouble and they need financial help. Certainly got inflation risk. That's a very real situation where how do I balance investing my retirement money and protecting that balance versus, well, hang on, inflation, cost of everything's going up. How do I keep my purchasing power going? Spending changes, as I touched on, lifestyle changes in retirement, longevity risk. Will I outlive my retirement savings? It's certainly everyone's favourite legislation changes. We know that the government can and does tinker with things from time to time. Certainly a brave government if they ever tinkered too heavily with something like the age pension, but they can do that. So certainly a challenge that we recognise there for retirees. Now, just wanted to show this, thought this might be a good graphic to have a look at. So between the ages of 65 to 85, what we found is that your spending can reduce. You can see the amounts there per fortnight for a single or for a couple. And you can see how this is an average that that's been discovered, that spending does go down as you get older. And what we often see is though, medical out of pocket costs might go up. There might be more household cleaning because you're less mobile. You can't do it as much yourself, but then other costs will go down. I'm not traveling around as much. I'm not driving as much, not going on those holidays. I'm not eating out as much. I'm happier just to be at home and just stay local. So just a bit of a snapshot into the changes that can occur when it comes to retirement. So, and as you can see there, the overall spending, on average, it was about 7% decrease in spending between those ages. Certainly, when it comes to retirement, looking at future care expenses, that is a very big consideration. And I can't stress this enough, this is definitely a very specialised advice area as well. So you can see a resource there, the myagecare.gov.au site on your screen. Really great place to start. If this is something that you are about to experience or your family's about to experience, I can strongly recommend that there is advice firms out there that's specialised in aged care, and really do your homework. And if you need to seek that specialist financial advice, they are experts and they can help step you through that, and really encourage it. If it's you and you're looking to go into aged care, involve your adult children or whoever's going to be helping you administer and look after you and your estate as you get older, because it's very important that they go on the journey with you and they understand what's going on and what's involved as well. All right, now I just want to move into retirement investments. Now, I would say, when should you review your investments? Anytime anything significant changes in your life, and certainly retirement is one of those significant changes. And it's very important, as I touched on, about your life expectancy and how long you're often going to be funding your retirement. It doesn't necessarily mean that I just bury my superannuation, for example, under a rock and just hope it lasts. I need to put some thought into how can I make this money work for me in retirement, and how hard do I need to make it work? So we'll get into that in a bit more detail. So just starting at a bit of a high level, a bit of a refresher for anyone who may not have heard much about investments. But when we invest your money, we're looking at different, what we call asset classes. And so what you're looking at on the screen there is an asset class, shares. They're an asset class, and they're a growth asset. So they're designed to try and, I guess, turbocharge my returns. They're driving the returns in my superannuation if I've got exposure to them. But they can be a very bumpy ride. So they can get me the high returns, but they can also get me the big losses, because as we all know, if we watch the news, share markets can be volatile. Now, if I look at the next asset classes, you've got cash as an asset class, fixed interest or bonds. They're our defensive assets. They're more designed to protect your money rather than try and really grow your money. And then we've got other asset classes we can give you exposure to. We've got private equity, we've got infrastructure, we've got property, and our in-house investment team will utilize all these different asset classes to build investment options that are available to you. What are those investment options? You do have a lot of choice. And we basically have a range of investment options to try and cater for everyone's personality types or risk appetite is another way you might want to say it. Now, if you look at the options in the blue box there, they're what we call our diversified options. They've been built by our investment team. They've got a mixture of those asset classes in there. And the names of each of these options pretty much gives away what they're trying to achieve. So if I pick on the top one there, high growth, that's got a heck of a lot of shares in it. So it's really designed, as the name implies, it's chasing high growth. It's going to be a very volatile option, but over the long period of time, that should get me high growth. I've just had a very roller coaster ride getting there. If I pick on options like the conservative or conservative balance, they've got more of those defensive options. So more cash, more bonds, that kind of thing. More designed to be safe and secure. Still got some exposure to growth assets, absolutely, because they're trying to keep your money growing, keep you ahead of inflation. If I pick on the asset class options there, you can see this is where you could build your own portfolio. You don't have to use the pre-diversified ones that our team have built. You can actually build your own. I might want 20% in Australian shares, 20% in bonds, 10% in the listed property. I can do that. I can structure my own portfolio. I can mix and match across the asset class and the diversified options. I can have any combination, any number of these. It doesn't have to be just one option. I can have multiple options in these, and I can chop and change that as much as I like. Now, I wanted to show you this one here, the balance risk adjusted option. The main reason being, if you've retired or if you're about to retire and you put your money into one of our retirement income accounts and you do not make an investment decision, which you don't have to, if you don't tell us how you want your money invested, we will put your balance in the balance risk adjusted option. Now, it's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially what this option is designed to do, if I pick on the purple and yellow blocks of color there, that's your share exposure. That's those turbocharged growth assets. But then I also want to point your eye to the green section there, which is the fixed interest or primarily bonds. And so what this option is designed to do is I've still got good exposure to shares. So when the share market's going well, my money's going to be growing nicely, but it doesn't have as much exposure to shares as other options. So therefore, if they're getting returns up here because the share market's doing well, my balance risk adjusted might be down below them because I don't have as much exposure to shares. Now, that is really important when the share market crashes. These options that have got a lot more exposure are going to drop a lot more. My balance risk adjusted won't drop as much because it's propped up by a lot of the other assets there, particularly the bonds designed to perform in a market when shares are going backwards. So it's that smoother ride we talk about. The highs won't be as high, the lows won't be low, so your returns will be a bit smoother through there. And just to, I guess, reinforce that story, what we've got here is the returns for this balance risk adjusted option from 2004 through to 2024, so a 20-year period. And you can see there that overall, the rolling 20-year return's been about 7.8% return per annum, but you can absolutely see there's been some negative years in there. Okay, so very important. Investment options with shares can and do go backwards. So very important to think about, but also what this graph is hopefully showing you is think about the long term. Now, you can see those 2 years that are negative. Everyone remember the lovely GFC. That's what happened there. And if I jump ahead to COVID in 2020, you can see that this balance risk adjusted option was pretty much flatlining there. So just to, again, take that long-term view when you're looking at any investment option. Now, wanted to share this one with you. I think this is a really good story. So if we go back to COVID, and so this graph here is showing 1 year's worth of returns. It's from 6th of June 2019 through to 6th of June 2020. Now, we all know COVID hit early in 2020. So this, what you're looking at here is someone who, I've started a retirement income account in June 2019. I've got $300,000 in it, and all I've decided I need out of this account is I need to draw 5%. Okay, we've just chosen 5% to make it easy. Now, if I had cash, COVID hits, I started with 300,000, I've drawn out 5%, and with some cash returns, a year later, I've still got about 289,000 and a half in that account. Now, what if I had my $300,000 retirement income account in the conservative balanced option? You can see it was doing well until COVID hit, then the share market dipped, and you can see where I would have ended up after 1 year. And then if I go ahead, balance risk adjusted, and then the balanced option, which has even got more share exposure again. So some people might go, you beauty, I'm glad I'm in cash. Look how smooth that was. I didn't suffer the big dip. But this is why it's important to look at the long-term view. Okay, how long is your money going to be invested for? If I bring this out on a bigger picture, let's say I go back to 2007, so before the GFC, and then I go right through to last year. So we're now looking at about a 17-year window. There's cash. I've started with 300 grand. I've drawn 5% per year. I've still got about $226,000 17 years later. There's the conservative balanced option. So you can see, even though GFC smashed it in 2008, and again, so did COVID in 2020. Even though I started with 300,000, I've been drawing 5% a year. I've now actually got more in my balance than I started with. And it paints the same picture with the balance risk adjusted and with the balanced option. What I want to highlight though is, and some of you might be looking at this, look at the amount of ups and downs in those other three options that have got a lot of growth assets in them compared to the cash option. So that's what you need to take into account. How do I cope with those ups and downs? Am I okay with that? Am I able to take that long-term view? Or does the sight of that smooth cash line, does that give me that sleep at night factor, that peaceful feeling, even though my balance is going backwards? Okay, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. That's where I can look at a blend or a mix of these options. Now, I thought this might be good to show as well, where I'll just compare cash and the balance risk adjusted options. So basically the same timeline from 2007 through to 2024, someone starting out with $300,000 in an income account and just drawing 5%. So in 17 years, the balance risk adjusted, they've drawn their 5% a year over that 17-year period. They've had about almost $286,000 in income over that time, compared to 5% getting drawn out of the cash. They've drawn about $250,000. So about a $25,000, $26,000 difference in income received over that 17-year period. And if I click ahead to the actual balance, you can see that the balance risk adjusted balance has gone up. Because again, even though it's been up and down and you've been drawing on it that period of time, because of those growth assets over a long period of time, my money has grown. Cash, obviously my 5% I've been drawing has been higher than what my cash returns have been. So my overall balance has been going down. And then if I jump ahead to say, well, what would my income be next year if my balance was $372,000? 5%, I'm getting over 18,500. Cash, 5% of my 226, I'm only getting just over 11,000. So what that is saying to me is that, yes, cash is safe and secure in regards to share market risk, but it's certainly not safe against inflation risk. So if cost of everything's going up over time, and then you've got your balance risk adjusted, which has got some of those growth assets. So yes, it would have been a bumpier ride if you looked at those 17 years in isolation, but over a long period of time, it's still generating a good income and the balance is growing. So just wanted to leave that with you there. Thought that was going to show. Now, if you do want to find out any more information, our Australian Retirement Trust website has plenty of resources on there. You can have a look at all the investment options, and I really encourage you, have a read of them. What are they trying to achieve? How are they invested? What is the level of risk? How have they historically performed for me? So have a read of those, and remember, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be a combination. And really encourage you can see the risk profile quiz on the screen there. Really great little exercise to do, something similar to what a financial advisor will do with you to find out what type of investor are you, and therefore what type of investment options might be appropriate for you. So really encourage you to take advantage of that. Now, that is enough from me. You're probably sick of hearing from me. So I will throw over to the amazing April to tell you how to look after your super in retirement.
Thank you, Ken. I'll allow you to have some water because I know it gets a little bit hard when you talk for that long. So thank you. Ken did talk about the investments. Just a question that has come through. Can I be in more invested in more than one particular investment option, yes, you can. So as Kane mentioned, you might be able to do 20% in one different option, 60% in another, and then 20% in another. It's completely up to you as to how you want to invest your money. Now I want to talk to you about looking after yourself and your superannuation in retirement. Now, firstly, I want to let you know you'll probably be receiving your annual member benefit statement every year. So just check on your member benefit statement, make sure everything's as it should be, so that no money's coming out that's unexplained or anything. Have a look at your fees, your performance, as Kane was talking about there, your investment performance. Have a look at your gut check. Were you okay with how that investment option had performed? Are you looking at switching those options? And another question that we do receive as well is, does it cost me anything to switch my investment options? No, there is no cost to switch your investment options. So have a look at that, and maybe you might have insurances which you weren't aware that you have, and those insurance premiums are deducting money from your account. So see if you really do need those insurances in retirement. Now, to keep your superannuation safe, that's really important for us. So we want to let you know, in terms of scams and people contacting you, we will never call you from an unknown or a blocked phone number. So if somebody gives you a call and says, I'm from Australian Retirement Trust, on an unknown number or a blocked number, it is not us. Also, member online login details. When you give us a call, we do not ask you for your member online login details. And in fact, we don't know your password. We can reset your password for you, but we don't know it. We don't need it. So if anybody calls you and asks you for your member online details, please be safe. We do not want you to give out those details. And also, we do not ask for payments over the phone. So if you get those calls, no, it's not Australian Retirement Trust. If you were curious at all about a phone call, what you can do is hang up, call our contact centre. We generally make notes there to say that we've contacted you. So if you're suspicious, please give us a call and we will let you know. Maybe we might need to add a bit more security on your account. If you wanted to know more about superannuation scams and how to protect yourself, we do have a Super Insider podcast, which is episode 12, about protecting yourself. So if you want to dive a little bit further into that information, have a look at our Super Insider podcast. And our Super Insider podcast has different topics as well, so you might want to check those out. Another thing to be mindful of is elder financial abuse. And more often than not, the people that we choose to look after us in retirement are very honest and trustworthy people. But we do hear that sometimes, unfortunately, there is elder abuse. What does this look like? Maybe you might have a power of attorney and you're leaving up to somebody to help you with your finances. They might go shopping for you, but as they, buy your groceries, they might be buying their groceries at the same time. So this is where you want to keep an eye on. I said you'll get your member benefit statement annually. Keep an eye on your money that's coming out. Is that the right portion? Or are you maybe, if you're giving money away, do you have the food in your fridge? Why don't you have food in the fridge if somebody's going to buy you groceries? And now this might not be for yourself, but one of your friends or a loved one, you might see that this might be happening. And generally, if your gut tells you something wrong, it's probably wrong. So just ask them some questions. Maybe tell them to call the superannuation fund if there is those things happening. So we just want to make sure you look after yourself. And another thing to do, and this is what my mum did, I was very proud of her. She was very proud of herself. She made a folder of all of her paperwork so that if in the event she passes away, we know exactly where to go, her top drawer. And all we do is we take out this folder, and she's provided us with where her will is, who the enduring power of attorney is, enduring guardian, all these other information, advanced directive care, financial plan, and who she's nominated, but also she's got who's the phone bill with, who's her bank account with. So who do we need to contact if in the event she passes away? Now I'll go through these 6 things on the screen here. A will. So this is important. If in the event you pass away, who you want these funds to go to. So we will talk about who you can nominate as a beneficiary on your super, but it's really important for your estate planning purposes to have a will in place. An enduring power of attorney. You can have one person, two people on this. They look after the financial matters for yourself, especially if you become incapacitated. So enduring power of attorney, they look after your finances. An enduring guardian, they look after your medical plan. So if you become unable to make those decisions for yourself, they will help you, or they will help the doctors and medical staff work out the appropriate medication for yourself. Advanced care directive. Now this is where you would nominate how you want that medical experience to, I guess, play out, especially again if you become incapacitated. So you might be able to ask for medical treatment that you may say, I want to refuse medical treatment if in the event this happens. So you can do case scenarios as to say when you would like to get further medical treatment or when you'd like to refuse medical treatment. Financial plan as well. As I said, my mum's put this folder together, put all your finances together, all your details together, just to make sure that it's all in one place and everyone knows where to go. Also, nominating a beneficiary. So this is where you nominate who you want your super to be paid to. Now, you may not be aware, or people assume that when you pass away, your super fund will just pay as per your estate or as per your will. And unfortunately, though, that is not the case. Based on legislation, a super fund, if there's no nomination there, we have to firstly look to pay to dependents. If there's no dependents, the second step is the will. So who you can nominate, and this is really important to complete what's called a binding death benefit nomination form. You can nominate your spouse, any child of any age, even if they are over the age of 18. You can nominate someone in an interdependent relationship with you or someone who is financially dependent on you. What's an interdependent relationship? Then they might share, you might live together, you might share the bills together, you might have a close relationship with you. So these are the people that you can nominate. However, if your person doesn't fall within this nomination list, what you can do is you can nominate them in your will. So let's say you want to leave money to a charity or a neighbour, or say grandchildren, niece, nephew, somebody who is not financially dependent on you. What you can do is you can put it in your will. So you express your wishes in your will and you ask the super fund in the binding death form to be paid straight to a legal personal representative. Then it bypasses the super fund and it goes straight to your estate and they deal with it from there. So really important to add that binding death benefit nomination on there. Now, if we look at the accounts and where you can put these nominations, so binding death benefit nominations, they pay out a lump sum of superannuation. So binding death benefit nomination, anything your account pays out as a lump sum to that person. Preferred beneficiary, you can let us know who you may want those funds to go to, but it's not binding, so it can be contested by law if somebody was to say that it isn't correct. So the safest way to do it is put a binding death benefit nomination on there. There's also reversionary beneficiaries though. So reversionary beneficiaries are a little bit different. They will go towards income accounts. So income accounts are basically meaning if in the event you pass away, you want your income account to be sent, for example, to your spouse. So they receive your income account. All the income stays within super and they effectively have that account as themselves. So particularly if you're over 75 and there's those restrictions that you can't add money in, if you don't have a reversionary on your income account and you only have a binding death benefit nomination, there is no option to put the money back in unless you can make, contributions to your super. So if the importance is to keep your money within the super environment, particularly if you do have a spouse, you can nominate a reversionary beneficiary. They take number one place. So if you've got an income account, firstly look, do you have a reversionary beneficiary? If so, they'll pay as per that reversionary beneficiary. You can have a binding death benefit nomination on the account at the same time, but reversionary beneficiary trumps a binding death benefit nomination when we talk about income accounts. Now, in terms of a lifetime pension option, which I will go through with you shortly, there is something that's called spouse protection. So again, we can still keep it within the super environment, but we want to cover our spouse for the rest of their life. And I will dive in a little bit more detail on that lifetime pension option. But just have a look at those options there and make sure that your loved ones are listed and that you are comfortable with who you have nominated. You might even want to seek some planning or financial advice for estate planning purposes. Now, there is something to consider when those funds get paid out, if in the event you pass away. What happens is if they are going to a dependent, they receive those funds tax-free. Okay, so happy days, they receive those funds tax-free. But what happens if my money is paid to a non-dependent? So say, for example, my adult child is, say, 50 years of age and they are totally independent, not financially dependent on me, then they may not be considered a dependent. So what happens is non-dependents, if we pay to them, they have to pay taxes. So it's up to 17% tax they pay on the taxable portion of your account. You can have a look at that taxable portion on your member benefit statement, so you can see if in the event you pass away, who's going to be paying those taxes. You know, you can get estate planning purposes to see how you can adjust those taxes. So if you wanted to if that's really important to you, give us a call and we can maybe direct you to a estate planner as well. So let's have a look at thriving in retirement, because that's the name of the game of this seminar. So what might be good in retirement? Living a full life. So it may or may not be of interest to you, but there's been some studies done that you can live longer if you've got more meaningful relationships, you've got more contentment in retirement, and you've also got that freedom of choice to do the things that you want to do. So make sure, you know, you've got your social network, your activities set up in retirement, so that you can really thrive and live as long as possible with a healthy retirement. Now I'm going to send over to Kane, which is one of the most popular topics of age pension. So Kane, take it away.
Thank you, April. All right, so going to dive into the age pension a little bit. Now, appreciate that some of our viewers, you might already be on the age pension or getting some type of entitlement there. So just bear with us if that is you, but also hopefully you might pick up something that you didn't know about as well. So with the age pension, for those of you who haven't reached it yet, you can actually apply for the age pension once you hit age 67. You must also have 10 years plus of residency, and importantly, they will always apply an income and an assets test to see what you're entitled to, if anything. They'll always apply both of those tests, all right? Now, showing up on the bottom of the screen there, you can actually see the full amounts per fortnight, what the age pension is sitting at the moment, and you can see that there is an amount there for a single or an individual, and then an amount there for a couple, okay? So that's the maximum entitlement, but as I said, they will apply the income and asset test to see whether you're entitled to that or only a part pension or potentially nothing at all. Now, important for anyone who hasn't reached age 67 yet and you're thinking about applying for the age pension, just be aware you can apply up to 13 weeks before you turn 67, and I really encourage you to do this just so you're not waiting. So if you are entitled to it, when you turn 67, you can hit the ground running and those payments can start almost immediately. So great little tip to keep in mind there. Now, one thing that we wanted to talk about here is a lot of people think that when I'm retired, I'm getting the age pension, I can't earn any income, otherwise it's going to wipe out my age pension. Not necessarily the case. There is a thing that the government have established called the work bonus. And essentially I can earn a certain amount per fortnight before it impacts or is included in any of my age pension assessment. So really encourage you to have a look at that, because there's an amount per fortnight that I could earn. So I might want to do a little bit of casual work, or I've got some opportunities to earn a bit of pocket money, which could be great. The extra money could be helping me, but it also could be just that social outlet and that purpose that you attach to doing a job as well. So just be aware that there is the potential to earn some money, and it does not impact your age pension on entitlements. So encourage you, have a look at that. The work bonus is what it's called, if you want to find out more about that. Now, want to spend a little bit of time talking about deeming. So when it comes to the income test, they'll look at if you're earning any type of income, if you're getting rental income from a rental property, that kind of thing. But the biggest area of confusion we find around the income test when it comes to Centrelink is my financial assets. So what Centrelink will want to know is, what is the total of your financial assets? What's the balance? So you can see there on the screen what's included under the financial assets. So anything I've got in bank accounts or term deposits. They want to know the total dollar value. They don't care what interest rate it earns. They just want to know, how much have you got in the bank? Oh, I've got $3,000. I've got $10,000 over here in a term deposit. They also want to know the value of, have you got shares outside of super or managed funds? What's the balance of your superannuation after you hit age pension age? Or if you've got it in an income stream, they want to know the value of that. And also gifts, and I'll touch on that in a second as well. So what they do with deeming is they will assume, the government sets the deeming rate, and essentially the deeming rate is just the assumed amount of income those financial assets earn. So you don't have to report that my bank account earned me 3%, my term deposit earned me 7%, my shareholding got me 7%. They don't need to know that. They just want the total dollar amount reported. Then they apply the deeming rates to it, and to be fair to the government, the deeming rates are generally very favourable compared to what your financial assets are actually earning. So often the deeming rate, or the income that they are deeming that it earns, is lower than what you actually are earning. And if you're earning more than the deeming rate, great, they don't care. That's more power to you. And I just want to finish off on this, is that when you've got an income account with your superannuation, they don't care what you are drawing out of that. So say I've got an income account set up and I'm drawing $30,000 a year out of that. They don't count the $30,000 as income. They just want to know, what's your balance of that income account? Oh, it's $250,000. Great. They're going to apply deeming percentage rates to that balance, not the fact that I'm drawing $30,000 a year income. That's a common area of confusion that we come across. All right. Now, the other area that we get a lot of questions around is gifting. So some people think, oh, I'm going to apply for the age pension soon, but I want to give the kids, my adult kids, some money. I'm going to give it to them first and then apply for the age pension. Centrelink have what we call the gifting rules in place, and they're there for a reason. They will combat that kind of scenario. So effectively with gifting, I can give there's a 1 year limit of $10,000 in a financial year, or no more than $30,000 over a 5-year period. Now, what I want to point out here is, you can give as much of your money away or all of your money away if you want to, but just be aware that Centrelink, anything over and above these gifting limits, they will still class it as an asset for you, so it will be assessable when you apply for the age pension. So I don't want you to think that, I can't give the kids, I'd love to give the kids $50,000 each. You can do that. Just be aware that anything above the gifting limits is going to be included as an assessable asset for you when it comes to Centrelink. Okay, so you can give money away, but there is gifting rules in place to factor that in. And just be aware, 5 years prior to you applying for the age pension, they will also look at any money that you've given away in that period as well. So just be aware of that. And again, a lot of resources online if you want to have a read about the gifting rules as well, because it is a hot topic in particular. Now, what happens if I don't have enough income to live on? I'm retired, I've set everything up, I'm looking at all the income I've got available to me. What can I actually do? So certainly, probably the most obvious thing is, do I need to adjust my lifestyle? Review all my expenses. Easiest way to do this is, if you live by a budget, what are some things I can cut out, or can I substitute? Is there cheaper substitutes? Is it, I love going on a weekend away every few months? Well, do I need to cut out and skip the odd one? Instead of frequent holidays, is it infrequent? Instead of 5 nights, is it a 3-night, instead of eating out at my favourite restaurants, do I need to space that out or dial that back a little bit? Buying different brands of things. That's the kind of thing. So you need to think about, do I need to adjust my lifestyle? As I touched on the work bonus, is there the ability to do some part-time or casual work? Get a little bit of extra income. Is that something that's available to me to help with the shortfall? Review my retirement savings. So actually have a look at what I've got. Is it set up the right way? Am I maximising everything I can there? A big consideration is my investment options. So I get it. I appreciate that it's a very different mindset when you're working, you're earning a salary, money's coming in, you're growing your super, to when you retire, effectively that tap is turned off. What money you've accumulated at that point of retirement, that's the only money you're generally going to have, and that's got to last you into retirement. So I appreciate that it's a very different mindset, but try and appreciate also that, hey, hopefully you live a long and healthy retirement and you've got a long investment time frame. So can I make that money work a little bit harder for me? And it doesn't have to be every dollar. It might be just I've got a bucket of money that I'm going to get working harder. The rest of it I've still got safe and secure in an option that helps me sleep at night. So that might be something you need to look at. Downsizing. So there's a rule in place, and I will touch on this, but downsizing, where the government have brought in a scheme where I can downsize my existing a family home and buy something smaller and use the extra proceeds to boost my super. And there is some private and also government schemes around tapping into your home equity. So if you own your own home, I could access some of that equity, never more than the value of my house, and it's designed to, that's not realised or doesn't have to be paid off until I sell that place is sold. That could be a way to generate some extra income to ensure that you're living with dignity and having a great retirement. Now, just want to touch a little bit on the downsizer. So again, Google is your best friend here, or jump on the Australian Retirement Trust website. We've got just in the search bar, just type in downsizer and you'll find a whole page dedicated to this. So effectively, as I touched on, you can downsize your family home, because often what happens, you've got the bigger home, raise the family, the kids grow up and leave, and you're left with this bigger house. You don't need it in retirement. I certainly know I don't want to be mowing lawns when I'm retired as much as possible. So I might sell a $600,000 house and buy a $300,000 unit. So I've realised this extra money, and under this scheme, I have the ability to put those proceeds into my super to boost the funds I have available to me. Important caveat to put out, really highlight though, is that bottom bullet point there. Just be aware your principal place of residence is not counted for the age pension. If I downsize, so if I stick with that example, if I sell the $600,000 house and buy a $300,000 unit, I've now got an extra $300,000 of assessable asset. Okay, so if I've put it into super, it's now included in my financial assets. It is assessable with my income and with the assets test. So just be aware of that, okay? And there is certainly some different criteria and eligibility requirements. So just make sure you do your homework or get advice on that. Just a couple of other things to touch on. So, there is some different age milestones that influence things. So if I'm 55 or older, then I can make that downsizer contribution if I'm eligible. Again, comes, how long have I been in the home and the proceeds, that kind of thing. Between 60 and 64, I can't split eligible contributions with a spouse of 60 or over if they're permanently retired from the workforce, or if they've left employment at age 60 or over. So again, have a look at that. And between 67 and 74, if I want to put money into super, I need to satisfy what's called a work test. And that means I must be working a minimum of 40 hours in a 30-day consecutive period to be able to put money into super in that financial year that I've satisfied that work test. So just be aware, a few limits there. Again, generally easy to find information like that if you want to have a look on the website, or again, give us a call. Okay, no question too silly. This is what we do for a living. We're around super day in, day out. So you can always ask us hang on, I remember something about a work test, just give us a call. Alrighty. Seniors healthcare card. Now, this healthcare card is designed for people who, okay, I may not be eligible for the age pension, but there is a seniors healthcare card available, potentially available. So you've got the income thresholds there on the screen. So just be aware they will have a look at income, but there is no assets test applied to this seniors healthcare card. It can give you some concessions on some health and discounts and that kind of thing when you've reached pension age. Now, if you want to find out more, as I said, we've got a lot of resources online. We've got a whole section dedicated to the age pension. And if you're struggling to find it, as I said, we've got a search feature on the Australian Retirement Trust website. So just type in the word you think and you'll generally find those. It's a best way to zoom around our webpage. Now, that is enough from me. I'm going to throw back to April now to take you through all of Art's income accounts.
Thank you, Kane. And I'm going to do a shameless plug. Kane's actually put someone in the hot seat on one of our podcasts where he's asked an expert all these pension questions. So have a listen to that one. There's been a couple of questions that come through. So before I get into the income accounts, somebody's asked a question here. So can I not contribute to my super if I'm no longer working? So I think this is when Kane was referring to the works test. So the works test is you need to meet this if you're wanting to make a tax deductible contribution. So it's only if you're looking to claim a tax deduction. So between 67 and 74, if you want to claim a tax deduction, you need to work at least 40 hours in a 30-day consecutive period. When you reach the age of 75, you're unable to put more money into your super unless it's that downsizer contribution. So good question there. So let's go get stuck into the income accounts now. Now, there's you might be aware of all these different products here on the screen. When you're working, you might be used to the accumulation or defined benefit account. You might have had a transitional period where you may have dropped your hours and you opened up a transition to retirement. But we're thriving in retirement today, so we're just going to focus on our retirement products, which are these two on the side here. Our retirement income account and our lifetime pension option. So let me go through the benefits, the pros and considerations with these two styles of accounts. You may not have actually heard of the lifetime pension option because it's only been available for a few years now, but the lifetime pension is an account that is designed to pay you an income for the rest of your life. And as you saw before when Kane went through the investment options, you saw there that some people over a 17-year period had more money in their superannuation because they were only drawing down 5%. So we've actually found in research that retirees are very reluctant to spend their nest egg. But if they knew of the compounding growth, which you're here today to learn about this, you may be able to spend a little bit more. And this lifetime pension gives that comfortability that you'll always have an income and potentially above age pension as well. If you're wanting to purchase this account though, you are in it for the rest of your life after you've passed a 6 months cooling off period. So if you purchase this account, you find it's not right for you, if you've passed 6 months, you are no longer able to come out of that. It is stuck there and you are unable to access those funds, but you will receive an income for the rest of your life. There can be some benefits with the asset test for Centrelink entitlements. So if you're asset sensitive, this might be an account to open as well. And you receive fortnightly payments for the rest of your life. So even if you live up to your 120 years of age, you will still continue to receive that fortnightly payment. Things you need to consider though with this lifetime pension, that fortnightly pension, the benefits is you'll receive those payments for the rest of your life. The choice to have your payments continue to your partner. So what happens is if in the event you pass away and your spouse is still alive, you can put on what's called spouse protection. So we can then continue to pay your spouse for the rest of their life. As I mentioned before, there's those if you're asset sensitive and you're wanting to try and get a little bit more age pension, this is where the account might suit yourself. And if you pass away, now this is one of the biggest questions that we do receive on this account. If I purchase this account, if I say I purchase it with $100,000 and you've only paid me $50,000, what happens to the remaining $50,000? Well, that will get paid out as a death benefit. So you'll have the comfortability knowing that that could be also paid out. Things to consider though. It is invested in our balanced risk-adjusted option. So we are planning to increase those fortnightly payments year on year. But as Kane showed you before, some years we do receive that volatility. So your fortnightly payments based on the 1st of July return will go up or down. You can only open this account between the ages of 60 and 80. After 6 months, you cannot exit this account. It's also not flexible. So if you put money in this account, you're getting fortnightly payments. But if you need a new car, you can't say, can I take out $30,000 from my lifetime pension? You cannot. It doesn't offer you that flexibility. But a retirement income account can offer you that flexibility. So we've got a retirement income account, the flexible one, which is one of our most popular accounts. It provides you a payment each year. So you might have those received either annually, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly. The initial transfer, you just need to open it up with a minimum of $30,000 and you can elect that frequency. So maybe when you were working, you were receiving monthly payments or fortnightly payments. So you're used to that setup. So what you can do, if you retire, you can then substitute your superannuation as your income and you can elect to have those payments. So let's go through these pros and cons. So you can adjust your income. So if we look at the lifetime pension option, you cannot adjust that. It's purchased, and when you purchase it, there is a set amount for you. So you can have a look at our calculators to see what that is. In a flexible income account, though, you can adjust the payments that you receive as long as you're accessing the minimum percentage. You can take out lump sum withdrawals if and when you need it. So if you need that new car, holiday, fridge breaks, things like that, you can take out lump sum withdrawals from this account as well. Benefits are also tax-free income over the age of 60. And this is one of a common question we get asked, and we can't really answer this, but the question is normally, should I be in an accumulation account or should I be in an income account? Well, one of the benefits of having money in an income account is that there is tax-free investment earnings. So even though you're over the age of 60, if you're in an accumulation account, you do pay that 15% tax on your investment earnings. Whereas the income account, you don't pay taxes on those investment earnings. So that can actually be a reason that some people might want to go to the income account. However, it is an individual preference. You do also get to choose where your funds are invested. Kane mentioned all those different investment options available to yourself. And also, if you've been with Australian Retirement Trust and you're wanting to open up an income account, you may also receive the retirement bonus. So what you might see on your member benefit statement, there might be like a little bit of a section there that says retirement bonus. So this might be an amount that goes into your super above and beyond what you transfer over from an accumulation account. So it's a little incentive there to stay with Australian Retirement Trust. What else to consider though? In this flexible account, you can access this account whenever you wanted those funds. So it may run out if you like to spend your money. It's also 100% assessed by Centrelink, and the minimum age pension does need to be taken. So remember how I mentioned earlier there, accumulation versus income account. So income account, that can have those advantages with tax-free earnings. However, the accumulation account, you don't have to access any money, whereas in an income account, you do have to access those funds. And if you wanted to ask those questions, should I be doing this? Remember, you've got access to financial advice, which is part of your membership. Now, if we look at these two products, the lifetime pension was not designed to be used on its own. It was designed to help retirees be comfortable with spending their money in retirement. Because as I mentioned, more often than not, we'd actually spend a lot less than we may be able to. And I started in super in the contact centre 13 years ago, and I'd seen a few different accounts when they called, if they passed away, where they had more money in the account than the date they passed away. So they may have been able to enjoy a little bit more of those funds. So have a look, as Kane mentioned, really important where you're invested. So the lifetime pension, it does provide you that safety that there will always be that payment for the rest of your life, and that could be above age pension as well. Money back protection. So this is where I mentioned in the lifetime option, what happens is, let's say you purchase the account with $100,000, you've only received your fortnightly payments of up to $50,000. That $50,000 we can pay out to your nomination, your binding death benefit nomination, or your estate. The retirement income account, this is where you can have that reversionary beneficiary on there, where you can pay, or you can allow that to be paid to, say, for example, your spouse. So they can still keep that money in super and generate that income that they were receiving whilst you're alive. So you can revert that to a spouse in the income account. Also, the lifetime pension, you can cover a spouse protection. So that means if I purchase the lifetime pension and I also purchase spouse protection, if I pass away, my spouse is then going to take over that account and he's going to receive those payments for the rest of his life. So that's something you can do, is put on there, that spouse protection. Do you have access to withdrawals? You do in the flexible income account, however, you don't in the lifetime pension, which is why that lifetime pension wasn't designed to be used on its own. It was designed to be used with the retirement income account. And I've actually answered one of our commonly asked questions, can I have both? Yes, you can have both of these styles of accounts. You can change your regular payments in that flexible income account. You are with just your fortnightly payments with the lifetime pension option. Together, we can tick all of those boxes. In terms of changing your investment options, remember the lifetime pension there is just invested in the balance, risk adjusted. However, the retirement income account, you do have the choice of those options that Kane mentioned earlier. So ticking all the boxes with having both of those accounts open, this is where you might want to chat with one of our financial advisors to go through those products. But if we look at the two products that we do have, maybe how you could work it out is, what's the minimum or what's the maximum age pension I can get? And then you work out what your budget is or what your essential item is. What are your housing, your utilities, clothing, transport, food? Maybe you want to budget in every year a domestic trip down the coast. You put through, what is my essential costs for the year? And what happens is, if that age pension isn't enough, maybe then you can consider, well, I want to make sure that always these costs are going to be covered. So you might open up that lifetime pension to make sure that those costs are always covered. And that might be keeping the air conditioning on in the hot months, or even the heater on in the cooler months. The retirement income account is really there for your play money. So, having that a little bit extra, and you're wanting to really spend that money for yourself in those earlier active phase in retirement, to eat out, do those leisure activities. You might want to join a sport. I know Kane wants to join bowls when he retires. He's saving that up for retirement. But you might have other sources of income as well. So one, we'll look at it as our essential items. Are they all covered? And the other one, where's our play money? And we want to have that above the essential costs. So Centrelink assessment. Now this is really important, how we assess these two types of accounts, because they are very different. So the age pension for the income test, in the accumulation and the retirement income account, it is deemed based on 100% of the current balance for the asset test. For the income test, it is deemed income based on the balanced. The lifetime pension option is 60% of the actual income and 60% of the purchase price for the asset test, and then it's 30% from 85 and over. So if we have a look at it in figures there, and we say which one's going to be best for us if we're asset sensitive or income test sensitive. If we are income test sensitive and we have a look at the screen there, we are more favourable in either an accumulation account or a retired income account because that figure there is lower. However, if we're asset sensitive, so maybe we have too many assets, you can see there 100% of the income account, $100,000 is counted as an asset, whereas the lifetime pension, if we're age 84 and under, is only $60,000, and then when we get from 85 onwards, it's then going to be 30%. So this might actually allow you to get a little bit more age pension, particularly if you are asset sensitive. To learn more about the retirement accounts, just head to the website and check out the different products and features on our guides. Next steps, I'll give it over to you, Kane, but yeah. Do you want to go through next step?
Sure.
A couple of questions?
Thank you, April. All right. So just before we get into the Q&A, and thank you to everyone who's been submitting your questions, and a special thank you to our education colleagues who have been furiously answering questions in the background as we've gone through today. Hopefully you've had your questions answered, but we will go through a Q&A in a moment as well, where we'll address some questions that we've received. So really off the back of today, what are some things you can do? So you would have seen this icon in the top corner of the screen there. That refers to your workbook, which hopefully you downloaded that, you've been following along. A lot of the resources and a lot of things that we've mentioned in today's broadcast are in that workbook. So it's a fantastic piece of collateral that you can use. The idea is it's to what can I go away and do something with? I've got that record for me. So really want you to walk away from today, definitely have a think about your investments. Okay, a lot of people do a set and forget, but it really pays to have a look at how your money's working, how it's invested, and what you're trying to achieve. How long do I need it to last me for? Definitely check on your age pension entitlements. What we do find is some people hit 67, they apply for the age pension, get told no because they've got too much assessable income or assets, and then that's it. But once a no doesn't always mean a no. So as we are retired, we're obviously spending down our assessable assets and income. So there may be a point in time where you will start to get some age pension. So please, if you haven't checked for a while, it's worth asking the question, okay? Definitely review your plans for later life. So certainly, what happens to my super? What do I want to happen with my estate? Have I got all my affairs in order to make it easy for me and for my family if something were to happen to me? And certainly have a think about that lifetime pension, because that has been one of the biggest issues that we're finding in Australia, and certainly the government are encouraging these types of products to address their problem, where a lot of Australians they're actually passing away and they've got so much of their superannuation left over, they could have actually enjoyed a much more enjoyable retirement, spent a lot more money. So it could be something for you to have a look at. So encourage you to read up on that lifetime pension. Don't forget that there's plenty of advice options available. If any of this has piqued your interest, if you've got your own financial advisor, make sure you reach out to them if there's something you want to discuss. Or alternatively, being an Australian Retirement Trust member, you do have included as part of your membership access to advice on your ART account. So make sure you take advantage of that. We've got lots of tools and calculators available on our website, and certainly lots of other educational resources. So there's plenty of webinars like the one you're watching right now. We've got that Super Insider podcast with episodes you heard April specifically talk about the scams and protecting your super. So there's a lot of different topics on there. We've had a lot of different guests as well. So make sure you have a look at that. You can on your favorite podcast provider, or you can even watch them on YouTube on the Australian Retirement Trust channel if you prefer to do that. Now, before we go into questions, I will come back to that. I just want to make sure that you're aware. I always like to say this, that no question is too silly. So if you've walked away, hopefully we've answered some of the questions you had attending today's session, but hopefully we've caused some more questions to be thought up. And if you can't find the answers, give us a call. No question is too silly. Even if it's like, how do I log into my account? How do I read my statement? What does this mean? That's what we're here for. We live, eat and breathe superannuation, so we are here to help you. So please give us a call and No question is too silly, so I really want you to ask that. And you will also get an email from us shortly after this broadcast ceases, and we want to hear from you. We want to know your feedback. Hopefully you enjoyed today and you got a lot out of it, but we really want to ask if you could just complete the short survey and just give us that feedback so we know for future. So, all right, April, I'm going to throw it to you now with some questions. We know we've had plenty, so have you got anything that's really jumped out at you in particular?
Yeah, so put us on the hot seat, which is nice, but also, again, I want to thank our education team behind the scene answering these questions. Somebody said after listening I might be able to spend a little bit more, but I'm a little bit worried, or what's my guidance to as to how to budget for that? We have spending calculators on our website. So we do have growing calculators, but there's also spending. So maybe what you might want to do, and as Kane mentioned before, there's that life expectancy too. That's what we really covered in the previous session. So, average we're living till around mid-80s. And let's say, for example, we might be happy for our money to run out at, say, that life expectancy. If that's the case, you can go to the calculators. You can say, well, I want to have an income of X amount and I want to receive that fortnightly. How long will that last for? And I also want to plug a website. It's the superguru.com.au website, superguru.com.au, and it has the ASFA retirement standard. And again, we did go through this in the Pay Yourself in Retirement series, where it goes through what's considered comfortable lifestyle and a modest lifestyle, and then your maximum age pension. So that might be something that you might want to have a look at, those calculators, and also that Superguru website.
All right, just going through some of the questions. A common one we get here too, and this is one of the keys of where April talked about the different types of accounts with the retirement income account and the lifetime pension. A common thing we get is I've set up my retirement income account. I'm getting a set income. What if I need extra money? What can I do? Just be aware you've always got that option to make lump sum withdrawals from a retirement income account. So it might be I want to go on a holiday, or I need to buy a new car or a new fridge or something like that. I can make lump sum withdrawals from my retirement income account, which does not impact the pension I'm drawing. So I might have chosen to draw $30,000 a year out of my retirement income account and take that spread over fortnights. That's just going to continue, but then I might make a request to get $10,000 out and deposit it to my bank account. That is separate to that pension payment. It won't impact that. Obviously, it would impact the overall balance of your income account, but you do have that flexibility. And keep in mind, with those income accounts, you can increase and decrease those payments as well if that's what you need to do. And often when people first retire, they find they have to do that because they think they need X amount per fortnight or per month, but then they realise, hang on, I'm either drawing too much, it's just building back up in my bank account, or I'm not drawing enough, so I might need to dial that up. So that's where, again, thinking about this type of account for me, that's something to take into consideration.
One of the questions here is, can I have more than one income account? You can have more than one income account. If you do have more than one income account, there is fees for both accounts, but some people do have one to pay them an annual payment, the other one might pay them fortnightly, but just be mindful there is fees per account. So if you were looking at doing that. The other question here is, I've got some information about where to invest my money, that some should go in riskier and some should go in more conservative. So this is referring to what's called the bucket strategy, if you haven't heard of it, whereby you put some of your income stream in, say, a more aggressive option or more riskier option where it's got more exposure to a share portfolio. And then you've also got some in more of a conservative strategy where it has those defensive assets there. And what happens is you can choose from your flexible income account to draw down your money from a particular option. So what the bucket strategy is it's selecting to draw the money down from a conservative option so that we reduce that volatility in this balance. And we have some money up here playing with the market returns. So that will fluctuate there. But you need to be mindful, if you're looking at doing something like that, you need to be hands-on and on the ball to make sure that you've got enough balance in that account, because if you leave it as is and you're taking all your money out of this conservative option, gradually the risk does start increasing. So give us a call. We can talk to you about the bucket strategy, and our financial advisors can see if that's right for you.
Beautiful. And just finishing off on the bucket strategy too, probably if you speak to financial advisors, if you get 20 advisors in a room, half will advocate for it, half will argue against it. And it's because another consideration is, if I've got money in that conservative bucket to fund my pension inflows, well, then it's not exposed to growth. So it's pros and cons, and it really comes back to you, the individual. So as April said, really make sure you speak to your financial advisor or speak to our financial advisors if that's something you want to know more about. Now, I know that I did touch on this during the session, but we get a lot of people ask around, do I need to review my investment options, even though I'm retired? Like, why do I need to review them? But it's really like where I touched on the change in standard of living. It's really, it can be a bit of a set and forget, but it's really like, if I'm finding that things are tight, or if I'm finding that my balance is actually going up. Like you saw that example of the $300,000 and drawing the 5%, and it could be a case of, well, hang on, if my balance is going up, does that mean I don't have to take as much risk with my money as I have been? So there's different things to consider when, at different stages, where if you're just monitoring, and it might be you just check once a year when you get your annual statement, but certainly if you've got online access, which I encourage you to do, you can keep in touch with your super more now than ever before. But you could have a look at your balance and see how your options are performing, and remember that you can have multiple options. A lot of people do think, I can only have one or two. You can have as many as you like, and you can change as often as you like, and there's no fee to do that. So just want to reiterate that point there.
One of the questions is, if I put a binding death benefit nomination on my account, how long does it last for? So a binding death benefit nomination lasts on the account for 3 years. But if you wanted to put on a reversionary beneficiary, now this covers the income accounts, they will stay on there. There's no 3-year period. The reversionary beneficiary will stay on there. And then also, in fact, if we look at the lifetime pension option, the spouse protection will also always be on there. And actually, speaking of a spouse protection, one question I did get was, what happens if me and my spouse separate? Well, they no longer become a spouse when you do pass away. So the account does not continue unless they are your spouse at that time. And then it comes back to the money back protection. So I've purchased it with $100,000. I've used $50,000. The remaining $50,000 would be paid as per the nomination or go to the estate.
All right. I might touch on one. There's a few questions that are kind of around this topic, but often we get asked, particularly in couples, it's like, can we just combine our superannuation and just have one for ease? It's simple. We just generally in couples, you'll have one person in that relationship who generally looks after the finances. So can we just combine them and just have it in one superannuation? No, you can't have a combined superannuation account. The superannuation accounts are always individually owned. Now, that's not to say early on there might be some strategy you can do to try and put more super into one spouse's account rather than the other. But you always have to have a superannuation account separate, and there is so many considerations around if I wanted to move some of my super into my spouse's account, because effectively at the end of the day, if I do that, it's now no longer my money, it's my spouse's money. Hopefully they still love me and they don't leave me with the money as well. So it's a very common question we get asked, but no, super accounts always have to be separately owned.
Okay, and then we've also got, that's just shut down on me. We do also have one here. I've got some money that I want to put into my account, but I have an income account. Can I add any money to this? This is one of our most common questions as well. So if you have an income account open, you cannot add any money to that. If you're eligible to make those contributions, what would happen is the money will go in and we will open an accumulation account for you. So then you do have two accounts. You've got your income account and your accumulation account. If you want to really put it all in just the one income account, what you can do is you can close and you can reopen that account. So you can't transfer it in, but you can always close and reopen the account. Did you want to wrap things up?
Sure. So look, thank you again for everyone for taking the time to join us. And as I said, hopefully we've answered a lot of those questions that you came along to get answered. But also on the flip side of that, hopefully we've actually created some more questions that you now know, hang on, I've got to go and do some more homework, I've got to do some more digging, or I've got to attend some more educational sessions to find out the answers to those. So again, thank you very much for your time, folks. Please don't forget, fill out that survey when you get it and take advantage of all the other education resources we've got available to you. So thank you, and we'll see you in the future.